Welcome back, folks, and happy draft day. I'm Jake Ellenbogen, and today we're going to be talking about the, well, I don't want to say breaking news because nothing happened yet, but the latest, right up until the draft, that the Rams are trying to get into the top 10. Before we dive into it, be sure to like, subscribe, and comment. Also, be sure to follow me on all social media for, my content, JK Bogan. Let's dive into it. So, all right, guys. For starters, no, you're not seeing anything new. I'm using different glasses. I want to address the elephant in the room here. That's first thing. Second thing here is that the Rams are trying to trade into the top 10. Now, there are different things coming out about this, but I think, what I've heard and what has been reported is pretty much all off season is I've felt like at some point or another, the Rams are going to try to trade up. And I think their ultimate goal is to get Joe Alt. Okay. I've said that from pretty much day one. I felt like Joe Alt was the guy that they really wanted. Would they be able to trade all the way up to get him? That remains to be seen. Now, assuming the first four picks go the way you and I expect, we all know some people have May, some people have Daniels. I like May more, but I think Daniels goes at 2. I think May goes at 3. We already know Caleb goes at 1. And then Marvin Harrison Jr. goes at 4. So if that's the case with the Chargers, pick 5 here, all right? You have the Chargers. We're sitting here. This is where the draft starts, in my opinion, okay? And with that said, I'm going to say this. The Chargers, I've been reading a lot, listening a lot, and getting some of my own intel, and I will say this. I think the Chargers are going to go with an offensive lineman. I don't think they're going to trade down. I'm starting to believe that J.J. McCarthy is going to go at pick 11 and fall into the Vikings' hands. We all know they want him, so I don't think they'll necessarily have to trade up. With that said, Chargers, it's sounding like they're going to go with a guy like J.C. Latham out of Alabama. Reason being is they have Rashawn Slater at left tackle. They feel really good about him, but they want to run the ball a lot, and I think they want to upgrade Trey Pipkins at right tackle. So with that said, they're going to probably go after a right tackle. Is that Fuaga? Is that Latham? I don't know. I'd probably lean towards Latham. So then, say Latham goes at 5, right? And yes, I have a mock draft in front of me for reference. At 6, this is where it gets interesting. The Giants could go with Alt. They don't really have a need for tackle, but they could go with Alt. I don't want to say they don't have a need for tackle, but Alt, I think, really needs to play left tackle, if I'm being honest. So they could go with Alt. They also could go with Malik Neighbors. They could go with Rome Odunze. They could go with Brock Bowers. I personally think it's the first 3 that I mentioned. If that's the case, I kind of think they're going to go Odunze. I know a lot of people are saying, the Rams are going to get him. I kind of feel like they're going to go Odunze. There's just something in my gut that's telling me that. Malik Neighbors would also be a fit. I'm going to say they go with Rome Odunze here. Malik Neighbors has now fallen to the 7th spot. Okay? The Titans are at 7. Where do they go? I think we all know they're going to go with Joe Alt unless they're really fine with Nicholas Petit-Frere being their left tackle, and I don't think they are. So Joe Alt is going to be a 7th pick. So the Rams trying to trade in the top 10. The feeling is that it's going to be in the 8-9 range, get ahead of the Jets if they can. Now, left on the board currently, you have Fashanu, you have Neighbors, you have Bowers, you also have Byron Murphy, and you have Fuaga, and you have Fatanu. And I'll say this, I really do feel like a guy like Byron Murphy could be the pick. I'm not saying he's going to, but I really think that's one to look out for because I think Byron Murphy, if the Falcons don't trade down, could be the pick at 8. I think he's going to go a lot higher than some people think. I don't think he's going to go in the mid portion of the first round anymore. I think there's a chance he goes in the top 13. So then you move on to Malik Neighbors, okay? Neighbors, explosive, not everyone's type of flavor because if you already have explosive weapons and you're trying to diversify your wide receiver room, okay. Malik Neighbors would diversify the Rams receiver room. So there is that. You also have Brock Bowers. Now, Diana Russini, who reported the top 10 buzz about the Rams, went on the herd with Colin Cowherd and came out and flat out said, Sean McVay has a player he absolutely loves, and it's not a quarterback. So, took you 5 minutes going into this this video to hear that. I'm sure you're very happy about it. It's not a quarterback. I'm not saying they're not going to take a quarterback at some point, but they're not taking one in the first round. Okay, I stand by that. It's not going to be in the first round, and good for that. So, if the Rams do trade up with the Falcons, here is what we're talking about. We're talking about potentially Malik Neighbors or Rome Odunze being there. I'm going to lean Malik Neighbors, who falls to 8. Brock Bowers and Fashanu. Now, Fashanu is interesting because keep this in mind, at pick 9, the Chicago Bears, they drafted an offensive tackle last year in the first round. They also, Darnell Wright at Tennessee. They also have Braxton Jones at left tackle, who I'm high on, but maybe the new, I don't know, maybe the Bears aren't high on him. But it's worth mentioning that Caleb Williams, who will be the starting quarterback for the Chicago Bears this year, was asked in an interview who the Bears should draft at pick 9. And he said Olu Fashanu. He, trust him to guard him with his life. And the reason is because they go back to high school together. They played high school ball together. I could see the Bears drafting Fashanu. The Jets could draft Fashanu. So if the Rams really wanted to get him, and right after the first tackle of the draft got picked, well, actually second tackle with Joe Alt, at 8, I could see the Rams trading up for Fashanu. So maybe I'm a little off base there. Maybe I had him at 12. He ends up going at 8. But I could see that. I could also see the Rams drafting Brock Bowers. I know a lot of people are going to push back on this. The idea here is that he is a blue chip prospect, whether you believe it or not. He is a very, very, very good tight end prospect, one of the better ones that have come out in the last 10 years or so. And with the way the Rams utilize the tight ends, contact balance is key. It's not to say that Tyler Higbee goes down on first contact, but Brock Bowers doesn't go down on first contact at all. And they like those sprint outs to the flat. Brock Bowers eats in those sprint outs to the flat. He's got great contact balance, lower leg drive. This is somebody that's going to be really hard to bring down. And obviously with the new rules, he has an advantage as well because no hip drop tackles. So that's another one to keep in mind. I understand they have Colby Parkinson and Tyler Higbee and Davis Allen, but Brock Bowers would be just a weapon. Don't even look at him as tight end necessarily. This is a top weapon in the draft. Malik Neighbors would offer explosion, and honestly, he would be their receiver to take the top off the defense. He's great. I really like him a lot. I had a higher grade on Brian Thomas Jr., but there are some injury concerns with him, so he could fall down the draft. But Malik Neighbors could also be the pick. So my thought process is if they go up to 8, I think it's between 4 guys. Whoever is there between Neighbors and Rome Odunze, Brock Bowers, Byron Murphy, and Olu Fashanu. Okay? Those are the guys I feel very confident in saying in that top 4. Unless, say, Marvin Harrison Jr. fell. Okay, maybe he would be in there. Would probably be in there. Joe Alt would be there. I think Joe Alt is probably one of the top guys, if not the top guy on their board. Okay? So I would not be shocked. If Joe Alt doesn't go to the Titans, I'd be shocked. But if the Titans pass on Joe Alt because they're like, hey, we weren't expecting Neighbors to be there, we got to pick him, then I think at 8, I think the Rams get Joe Alt. So my prediction is still, I think they're going to go with Fashanu. They're going to end up with him in some way. But do not be surprised what happens if they get one of Alt, Fashanu, Neighbors, Rome Odunze, Brock Bowers, Byron Murphy. Do not be surprised. I 100% believe they're trading up. I've said that since day one. Again, this draft isn't bad. It's not a bad draft. But in my mind, and the way I've always looked at it, is at pick 19, you're going to get a good player who could potentially be great. But at pick 8, you trade up in the top 10, you could get a blue chip prospect, guys that don't come around very often. And you can get one of those guys and they can be game changers at the next level, day 1, maybe week 5. But regardless, you're drafting somebody like that because of how much of a game changer they can be. Talk about weight-bearing walls, and Les Snead, mentioning that. Getting one of these guys, Bowers, Malik Neighbors, Joe Alt, Rome Odunze, Olu Fashanu, these are weight-bearing walls. These are franchise players. This is why you trade up in the draft. And so I think the Rams could do that. I also would not rule out the Rams trading back up into the first round, even if they went a little bit higher than I initially anticipated with my mock draft. If they go higher, it's going to cost more than it did for, my mock draft going to pick 12. And if that is the case, I still think they're in play to get a 32nd or late first round pick. And I really think that there is a chance that they're going to end up with Chop Robinson and then whoever they take now. I don't get the sense they're going to go after, Latu because the medical. I think he's going to fall in this draft, if I'm being honest. I don't get the sense with Verse. I mean, I really think if you're reading into the meetings and what has gone out to the public, because that's not all that's happened. Obviously, they met with 30 players. They just haven't reported all the 30 players that they met with in those private visits. But I think if we're being honest with ourselves, the guys that they're most likely to draft, if we're just talking from the perspective of that they met with them and that we know of, Rome Odunze is one of them, met at the Combine, and Chop Robinson is another who they wouldn't take now in the draft if they traded up to 8. But Chop Robinson is another who they flew out to Happy Valley to meet with. So, again, I'm going to end it on this note. If you have not seen any of my content before, you're hearing this for the first time, remember this when the draft happens, okay? If Joe Alt is on the board, and the Rams have a chance to take him, remember this before the pick comes in. Tony Pastor's brother coached Joe Alt in high school, okay? That connection, we're all talking about the Bo Nix connections and all that. The Tony Pastor's brother connection is way more important, and I think that's going to have some effects. Will they end up with him? It's going to be hard. You're going to have to trip to probably 6 to get by Tennessee. They need a tackle in the worst way. Unless they, in my opinion, blow the layup here and go with a different tackle over Joe Alt, then okay. But I don't see him getting past 7. So those are my thoughts. I'll have other content just trickling in before the draft because I understand you guys want to chew on something, and I get it. But chew on this. The Rams are not going to be picking at 19, like I've said all offseason. I told you guys they're either going to trade up or they're going to trade down. And right now they're going through the motions, but it sounds to me like if I'm a betting man, I'm definitely betting on them to trade up instead of trading down. And there's no way in hell I'm betting on them to stay at 19. That would be the least likely. I think the least likely is probably them trading completely out of the first round. That just seems ridiculous. Quality over quantity. Now you're just getting into that. But it's very unlikely that they're going to stay at 19. I hope we're taking that away if you learn anything from this. And don't forget, my mock draft had pick 12. So there's a chance that the Rams don't get up to pick 8 or 9 or 10, and they settle at 12. And there's a chance they could still get Fashanu. We'll see how the board goes tonight. Don't forget to tune in to tonight's live stream. Day 1, we're doing day 2 tomorrow and day 3 as well. Alexis and I, Downtown Rams live stream 6th annual. We'll be hanging out with you guys, answering questions, watching the draft together. And we'll also be potentially breaking news on there as well. If we receive it like last year, we broke the picks of Stetson Bennett and Davis Allen and Warren McClendon, all sorts of guys. So yeah, stay tuned. But until next time, guys, I'm Jake Ellenbogen. You guys take care. Later, folks. Do you love talking about the Rams, the NFL, or just want to be a part of a community? Join my free Discord server today. We're over 800 members. We got 24/7 live chat, a level 3 boosted server, the ability to call into JE Live, playing online games with us on Kick streams, toggleable alerts for when I go live on YouTube or Kick so you don't miss a live stream, and exclusive giveaways. Click the link in the description, the comments section, or the link that comes up in the video to learn more and join today.